We're recording.
Yeah, we are.
Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Cliff. This is Kate. We are the co-founders of the Strong Machine Adventure Race Squad, and we are so excited to have you guys all signed up for Wildlands, ready to go in just a couple weeks here. You will have to excuse me because I just finished a training session and I'm pouring sweat. So, yeah, that's what it takes to be a top flight amateur adventure racer. But that's a joke because I think with all the new people we've gotten from Eco Challenge, I think you guys have helped triple or quadruple the number of adventure racers there in the country right now. So we are so excited to see this surge of interest in the sport. And so this is something a little new that we're doing to help out people that are kind of entirely new to the sport, eager to get started, but kind of not knowing exactly what it's going to be like or what it entails. So we have brought in several experts from the Strong Machine Pro Squad, Rick Kilty, Glenn Lewis, I see, and then we have Jeff O'Connor, who's one of the captains of our development squad, and Tom Rycroft might be here as well, although I think he's calling on a cell phone, so you might not see his face. But between all these guys, they have a ton of experience. Glenn's been racing forever. Rick's been racing forever. Jeff started as our photographer, a race photographer, and now he's the captain of our development squad. He is so into adventure racing. So he went through what you went through. Was it last year at Wildlands? You're muted. Yeah. Sorry.
Wildlands was my first solo race.
Yeah, last year. So he knows exactly what you guys are expecting to go through out there. So he will probably give you that perspective. And yeah, I think we'll just turn it over to them. We can help out with any race-specific questions you have that kind of are directed more towards the race direction side of things. But in terms of just getting you prepped and answering kind of the basics of whatever's on your mind, this is a great forum to do that. We would love if you put any questions you have in the message box on the right-hand side of your screen and chat it to us rather than, because we have so many people shouting out the question, I think it's going to be impossible. So, so yeah, chat in the question, and then we can do like any follow-ups if you have any that way. Yeah, I think that's it. And oh yeah, and just so you know, we're recording this and we're going to post it on Facebook or wherever publicly later. So this is not a private chat by any means. This will be public. So if you're uncomfortable with having your face out there or anything, you can make yourself audio only or whatever. But I just like to put that out there for privacy reasons. Yeah, that's kind of it. So I really wanted to just like start from the broadest perspective possible. So I think I'll hand it over to Glenn to explain how the Wildlands, how an 8-hour race, like a kind of a regional race is what we'll call it, differs from what you saw on TV on Eco Challenge, for those of you who haven't seen any other race besides that Eco Challenge. So go for it, Glenn.
Perfect. Hey folks, thanks for coming. Glenn Lewis, I'm actually down in Pennsylvania. So I have a bit of a drive in a couple weeks to get up for the Wildlands, but I'm excited. So if your only exposure to adventure racing is through something like Eco Challenge, expect something a little different. A single day 8-hour race will go by really quickly for you. There will be I'm going to back up a second and say I know nothing about this year's race. I have as little knowledge as you do. So what I'm saying could be wrong and they'll correct me. But what you should expect is a series of legs of the race that moves quickly. You'll be finding more checkpoints than they may have found in all of Eco Challenge. As an example, I did a race about a year ago. It was a 6-hour race and there were 82 checkpoints, which is a lot more than they found over, 10 days in Fiji. So you'll be finding a lot of orienteering flags in the woods. You'll be transitioning from bike to foot, paddle, all those things as pretty frequently. There won't be any 12-hour hike-a-bikes. I hope there's no peanut butter mud. I hope there's no Billy Billies. I think it's just going to be normal American adventure racing. One thing I wanted to start off with, I made myself a little list of tips of stuff that I like to do on the morning of the race to make your race day as successful as possible. And hopefully we'll start with this, and then maybe Jeff and I can answer some questions that pop up in the chat throughout. So I actually don't know what time registration opens. Kate, what time does registration open?
For the 8-hour race, registration opens at 6. And then for the 3-hour race, it opens at 9:30.
Perfect. So the reason I asked that is because I would recommend that you arrive before registration starts. I like to arrive in a parking lot about half an hour before registration opens to get everything set up. I like to be race ready before I register for the race, if that makes sense. Like I've got my pack packed, I've got my bike set up, my bottles on my bike, my map board on my bike is all ready to go, my map case is ready. I like to have everything set up before I register. So when you register, you're going to get your maps, and you'll get some rules of travel, or like a course outline that tells you what's going to happen throughout the day. And you want to spend as much time as possible on that, meaning that you're looking at the map, you're planning your route, you're figuring out which points a team of your ability will get, and which points a team of your experience might not be trying to get. You're looking to see how big the race is. You're planning with your teammates kind of what you're going to be doing. That's what I like to do as soon as I get the registration materials, and I spend as much time as possible with that. I might take care of things like getting my feet ready. I like to put some, what is it called? Desitin, like diaper cream on my feet underneath my socks, because your feet, so I don't know this race, but I'm sure that your feet will get very wet. Even if it's just getting in and out of a boat, your feet are going to get wet. I like to, get on my sunscreen, my bug spray, all that stuff, my anti-chafe thing, get myself all ready for the race as early as possible, so that I can spend time with the maps. The more time you spend with the maps, the less time you'll spend staring at the maps while standing still during the race, if that makes sense. I mentioned earlier that 8 hours is going to go really quickly, and I promise 8 hours will be very fast, especially if you spent a lot of it wandering around in a circle. The more time that you can spend preparing before the race, the less time you'll spend trying to prepare while you are racing. The last thing I wanted to mention pre-race is the idea of like prepping or planning out a course. A tip that I've given in the past is that if you're a new team, there will be a series of points that you will not be able to get. Not to be pessimistic, but just they're challenging to find navigationally, and they're further away. So if you're a new team, one of the things I like to do as a tip for you is to start off by almost like covering up the points that you're not going to get. Like look at the map and figure out, these are the points I know I'm going to get. And then maybe if we have time on this foot section, I might try to get those 2 points. But if you really haven't paddled before, I wouldn't expect to be getting all the paddle points and the ones that are miles across the water. But just trying to plan out a reasonable course would be a pretty valuable thing to start. I'm going to stop there because it looks like there's piles of things in the chat. What are the questions? Jeff, any good questions coming up?
Yeah, well, there's a few, just there's a lot of questions about the race and how that's going to work. What I kind of have told people in the past is a lot of this is you're going to find this out on race day. What the order of events is and what the maps look like. A lot of this stuff you're going to find out very, very close to the start of the race. And that's why Glenn is so adamant about getting ready and spending time, getting ready so you can actually have the time to spend on the maps, because a lot of this information is going to come at you like sort of all at once, and then you're going to hear it go, and that's going to be it's going to be a quicker pace, and time's going to evaporate a lot faster than you think. So yeah, Glenn, definitely like getting race ready, and then for all of the stuff that is that you're going to learn within minutes of the start. Let's see what. Holy cow! All right, we've got a lot of questions.
One question I see that I tried to mention, but I didn't do a very good job on identifying CPs that that an inexperienced team might be able to get. The first thing I would look at are, I'm thinking for trekking and biking sections, CPs that are on trail or near trails. Those are the ones that are going to be the easiest to find, and those are the ones that will be the least frustrating for you. CPs that are farther away from the transition area, ones that are on high points that are deep in the woods that you're going to have to be off trail for a while, those are the ones that you're going to want to strongly consider not including in your race plan. I wouldn't say to take a Sharpie and actually cross them off on the map, because if your race goes really well, or if you find yourself near those points, you might want to get them. But you certainly want to look for CPs that are near trails, CPs that are closer to the TA. Those are generally easier to find. Or CPs that are on really defined features are often easier to find. What I mean by that is if there is, again, I actually haven't been to this race area before, so it'll be as new to me as it will be to you. But imagine if you were in a large field and there was a very large mountain in the middle of the field. If there was a flag on top of that mountain, you would be able to find that flag. It would be an easy to find checkpoint. There's only one mountain straight up at the top. So that's the kind of point that maybe you would be willing to find, because you're not going to get lost walking around looking at different mountains, if that makes sense. There's just one place to look. If there is, if you look at the map and the topographic lines are confusing in an area and the point looks like in a funny looking spot, you probably want to consider not going for that point. And I assume that all the CPs are worth equal values. That's usually how, yeah, okay, I'm getting a nod there. So that's something to consider. There may be some mandatory points. Are there mandatories that they have to get?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we won't be able to give a lot of info on tonight, but essentially you'll see that there are some checkpoints that are indicated as mandatory, or there might be what we call a mandatory minimum, in a section you have to get at least 2 of the 5 checkpoints or something like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That makes
sense.
sense.
This is a good question here. Does the entire team check in at the designated CPs? To my knowledge, no. However, only one person needs to do the punch, but you need to be mindful of the rules and make sure that you're within visual contact of your team. Essentially, yes and no. Not everybody's going to have a punch. You're only going to have one passport per team, so only one person's going to need to run up and punch it. But you can't send people out. You'll all have to go pretty much to the point and have the one person punch it.
So the rule in adventure racing is that you need to stay within 100 feet of each other. So that's the whole team. On biking, there's a little more leniency there because sometimes it's really fast going down, you can, for safety, get a little more spread out, but you really need to stay within visual contact of your entire team the whole race. And for this race, there's something a little unique with COVID. We're doing no touch checkpoints. So when Jeff was talking about punching checkpoints there's a little clicker with a special code on it, typically in an adventure race, or sometimes for the fancy pants races, there's a dib, like an electronic dipper that goes into a hole and marks you electronically, instantaneously in the system as having been there. We're not doing any of that. It's going to be literally a word on the checkpoint that you'll have to write down on your passport, so that there's no touch on the checkpoint this year.
You're not going to tear up a book and leave a page at each.
Thought about it.
But I think that question stemmed from Eco Challenge, where every checkpoint actually had a person that's literally signed your passport.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was pretty cool. There were only 29 checkpoints in the whole race, yeah, in this race there will not be people at every checkpoint. You will see a flag, an orange and white flag. We'll show it to you at the race check-in. So you'll know what you're looking for.
There'll be probably a 3-letter word on it.
Yeah.
Then right on your passport.
They're pretty high visibility. If you're in the right spot, you should be able to spot it. So it's all about navigating cleanly.
So here's a question about footwear.
Yeah.
Do you advise choosing one style of footwear and sticking with it across all legs of the race?
We can speak to clothing generally. I saw a question about clothing generally too.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so here's the deal with shoes. I would suggest unless you use special shoes for mountain biking, you should wear the same pair of shoes for the entire race. You could bring different shoes if we have access to like your gear at the start finish. Maybe you want to change your shoes. But personally, I wear the same pair of shoes for every race I do. I do change my shoes when I'm mountain biking. I wear mountain bike shoes for most races. But that also could be something that your team wants to discuss. If everyone is going to be changing shoes, then maybe you have time to change your shoes. But I think for simplicity, I just strap on my shoes, tie them tight, tuck the laces in, and don't bother changing them. Again, your feet are going to get wet. I wear like a trail running shoe. I'm sure most people do something similar, most experienced racers. So just put on those shoes and don't be afraid to get them wet or to wear them in the boat. I know there was a question about like wearing shoes for boating. I would strongly recommend that you just wear your regular old running shoes for that, or like trekking shoes. If you wear special like booties for sea kayaking and you have to get out and do a little section on foot or run out to get a point, you probably don't want to have those on your feet. So I would just wear running shoes. Clothing wise, most experienced racers will wear the same thing for the entire race. You will see the fastest teams probably wearing like bike shorts and like a bike jersey or something like that for the whole race. Other teams will change between, bike shorts for biking and running shorts for running. That is something that is up to you, but you will see people wearing the same clothes for the whole race. One thing I'd strongly recommend without knowing anything about the area is that you should cover your lower legs, whether it's with tall socks or calf sleeves or even tights or something. The amount of blood that adventure racers have donated to the woods in different areas is mind-boggling. The more you can cover, the better. And this race sounds like it will be pretty cool, so
I took a picture of my legs after scouting a bushwhack for the 8-hour course, and I literally had just rivers of blood like down my legs. So I do recommend pants. Pants would be great.
I will voice in here, the 3-hour race rarely goes off trail. So if you've got kids, if you're worried about this being a crazy gnarly experience, the 3-hour race is very gentle. It is, you'll still have a really great adventure in the woods, but most of these comments are geared mainly towards the 8-hour race. So the 3-hour race, there's a few points that are a little bit off trail. It's nothing problematic, nothing that will be scarring to your kids, literally or figuratively.
Also, just on the topic of clothing, and then I'll get off that because I see other really good questions about water filters. Personally, I run a little hot. So if the weather is like 50, 55, 60 degrees, I will wear a t-shirt and shorts and I'll be fine. And I wouldn't plan on changing. I might take a long sleeve to start the day, or if you have like arm sleeves, like arm warmers, that would be really helpful for a race like this where it's going to be colder in the morning and then warm up. But I would not recommend you wear like a thick winter coat on the water in the morning. That's going to get soaked and it's going to slow you down. If you dress a little cooler, then there's just some motivation to go faster, to warm up your body. I have thoughts on water filters. Anyone else have thoughts on water filters? Jeff, you have an idea? Rick, you have something about a water filter you like?
You had a recommendation, Glenn, for the Katahdin Be-Free?
Yeah, grab one.
Yeah, I have those too. They work really well, and you can just like kind of stuff them when they're empty. You can just kind of stuff them into like wherever in your pack. Yeah. So
this is the Katahdin Be-Free. It's a unique water filter in that it's like shrinks down to nothing. Yeah, I see some people talking about that there. Tom mentioned it. And the water, this is not an exaggeration. It comes out at the speed of like a garden hose.
Yeah, it's for real.
Shoots out of here. I also have, so behind me is my gear closet. So I also have these like Sawyer water bottles, which are good, but the flow is really slow. It's like a trickle. These things are much, much, much faster. If you're able to get one of these. Yeah, iodine works as well, especially if you don't plan on using it. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on a water filter. I think these things are $30-ish. But if you get some iodine tabs or iodine drops and then just carry enough water, you won't have to use them. I would expect them that.
I can pop in real quick about iodine too, because that's basically what I use. It's not iodine, it's the water filtration tablets that you can get off Amazon. They're like $5 for like a little bottle that'll last you many 8-hour races. What I do is I not only have my Camelback, but I have a small like 16-ounce water bottle that I'll also just have at the start of the race, and I'll drain my Camelback entirely. So then I know I have at least 16 ounces of water to go, and I should start looking for a water source immediately, because those iodine tablets take about 30 minutes before you can drink anyway. So then it kind of gives me like a stop point where I need to fill my Camelback. Also, most of those water filtration things come with a second tablet to kill the flavor of the whatever the iodine tablet is. This bugs some people and it doesn't bug some people. Don't go into race day not knowing if you need to take that second tablet or not. The taste of the iodine doesn't bug me, so I don't need the second one, but it adds another like 15 minutes to your like water ready time. So if you use iodine and it comes with both of them, just be aware of that. Give it a test beforehand.
That's an awesome tip, Rick. I'm sure every experienced racer knows that feeling when you're in the woods and it's hot and you're really thirsty and you suck on your water bladder and you get nothing. And you're like, we are an hour from the TA. We're dying out here, and we're 30 minutes from our water being purified.
That happened to me last year in the Wildlands. Yeah.
It's not a fun experience. So that recommendation for an extra bottle is awesome. It's a great tip. Other questions?
I know we had a question about family teams for either race, but especially maybe the 3-hour racers, just anybody looking for some tips for how to race with younger teammates.
I have done 3 races with my son. He just turned 5 last month, so I do have some experience racing with young kids. If you're a parent wanting to do this again, I would recommend that you make it as fun as possible. Get the kids involved as much as possible. Candy goes a long way. If you have like your favorite snacks, piles of them. Like if anyone asks me about packing a pack for a race, I would always recommend to pack. I always pack on the lighter side. I don't want to take extra stuff. But if you're racing with someone like 15 and under, you want to pack extra food that they really want. It's a great motivation to get them to the end of the race. It's a great motivation during those low points. I think trying to get kids involved as much as possible, really, like they can go find the ward on the flag for you. If I'm sure we're talking about kids who are old enough, they can read you the clues off of the candy goes well for grumpy adults. I like that. They can read you the clues off of the clue sheet. Making it a fun experience, I think, is the best thing. If you try to push kids too far, this might be your first and last family adventure race. Anyone else?
Not to put you on the spot, but he's racing with kids, and he's done several of our races with his kids up. So I don't want to. If you've got nothing to add, then feel free to stay muted. But if you'd love to, I'd love to hear your 2 cents. You seem to have good experience.
Yeah, I started racing with my younger son, I think, when he was 8. And my older son did his first 12-hour at 9. And I'll tell you, like I would say, any team going into it for the first time, make sure your goals are aligned. If that kid is out there for a walk in the woods and you're trying to win the race, everyone's going to have a bad day. So have your goals with your team, whether they're kids or adults, have your goals lined up. And, with the real young kids, they're just there to have fun. They don't know what's going on. They see, they'll see people, look, an orange flag in the woods. You spot on, make it fun. You'll have a great day.
So
Thank you.
Side note, and never miss a chance to advertise. Chris is one of the race directors for the Green Mountain Adventure Race Association. He's one of the leaders of that group. They put on amazing races in Vermont. We love their races, some of our favorite races. So definitely check out their website. Chris, you want to give a little shout out to what you're doing this fall?
Yeah, actually, I just updated the site, and either later tonight, tomorrow, the email will go out. We're doing a drop-in, like 5-hour adventure race over a series of 11 days. There'll be a foot section and a bike section. You show up, you do as much as you want, as little as you want. You can just do the bike, just do the foot, but that way it stays distanced. It's on a nice trail network, but there's plenty of off trail. So if anyone wants to safely make the trip to Vermont, that's what we were able to do this year. We couldn't do our normal 12-hour summer event. And the sad part is we actually had the course designed well in advance this time. So we're all ready for next year. And we typically have a winter race too, but my hunch is come late February, early March, that's not going to be able to happen yet. So next summer, late summer, come visit us in Vermont. Thanks.
A wonderful question in the chat is, it's your first race, how to navigate. The number one tip I can give, and Rick will hopefully jump in as well because he's a very experienced nav person as well. It's better to go really slow and know exactly where you are than to try to go fast and get lost immediately. What I mean by this, and I'll say the hardest part of navigating for a race, I've navigated 40 plus adventure races. The hardest part for me every race is leaving the start and knowing exactly where I am at the start of the race and getting moving on the map. So figuring out where you are at the beginning and then getting on the correct trail and making sure things line up and then just going slowly. If you know where you are, you can't be lost. But it's very easy to get lost. If you just start running around, you get wrapped up in the race, people are excited, the kids start running, and then you realize you have no idea where you are. Everyone has done it. Don't feel bad. But yeah, we've all done it. Everyone does it. My first race, we just ran around in circles. Didn't have a clue where we were. We just found checkpoints and had to look at the flag to see what the number was to find out where we were. Go slow. Anything to add to that, Rick, about navving first time?
Yeah, go slow. Take your time on the map. The map is kind of a rough reflection of reality, so bear that in mind. I do have some like pointed tips because I was rereading my race report from like my very first race that I ever did. So I can call out a couple things. I don't yet know if we're doing like a mass start yet, Cliff and Kate, or if we're going to be given the maps and then people kind of trickle out after they look at it. Is that the way it's, or are you not allowed to reveal that yet?
This is we're still working out the details, but chances are it's going to be a staggered start for COVID reasons. So
gotcha.
We'll have a small group of teams starting every minute or every 5 minutes. We're still working the details of that out, but it's not going to be a mass start. No.
Gotcha. I would say up front, take your time looking at the map. Glenn already talked about this. You're going to be pretty fresh. You're going to be fresh. You're going to be looking at the map with open eyes. Plan a route that you think you're going to want to do out of the gate, and do as much as you can before you hit the road, because when you're 4 hours in your first race, you're going to be exhausted and it's going to be a lot harder to make great decisions. So do as much as you can before you leave. And you might see other teams like screaming off and you're going to go, oh my God, I should be moving right now. Take 10 minutes, sit and look at the maps. Great idea. Likewise, there are a ton of people in this race. You're going to be seeing people everywhere and you are going to get lost at some point because everybody does. Don't get sucked into following other teams because you think that they know where they're going. Even if they look like they're a team that know what they're doing. I made this mistake a ton when I first started, and I was like, that team must know where they're going. And it would take me 30 minutes in a direction that suddenly I realized that they were just as lost as I was. So trust your map, stick to that. Likewise, like, don't be afraid to ask other teams if you're stuck. Like, this is a super friendly sport. If you're out there and you're running in circles and you don't know what to do, pretty much everybody is going to stop for you to try to give you some sort of pointer if you're that lost. So don't be afraid to talk to other teams when you're out there. And finally, if it's your first race and you're not super used to navigating, stay on marked roads and trails. It gets really easy to look at a map and say, but this might cut like a mile off if I cut through the woods here. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it in your first race or your second race. Stick to the roads and the trails. It's going to make them way more enjoyable for you. You know, your navigation skills will grow from there, and you'll figure out how to get better and better in future races. That's what I would say.
One thing I'll add to what Rick said, I think those were like about the best tips you could possibly get. One more thing, feel free to ask for help from other racers before the race starts. When you get your maps and you're looking, like there will be hundreds of people there. Just ask somebody else who looks like they know what they're doing. Like you can tell, I'll talk to anybody. So if someone finds me, I will tell you where you are and which direction to go at the start of the race. Feel free to ask.
It'll be less than hundreds, but definitely wear your mask and go bat and ask a buddy.
Ask from far away. Ask from
far away, please.
I'll bring a laser pointer.
There you
What's
go.
that for?
Other questions? Are there other questions in the chat that we need to answer?
I can add one more thing to that. Every race has their own rules for being late, but none of them are very happy rules. I would rather be in any generic race you put me in an hour early to the finish than an hour late to the finish. Most races you will end up losing all of your checkpoints. Even in the most generous of rules, you're going to lose most of the points you spent so many hours trying to find. So the food will be hotter if you get in earlier, but getting in late is always a really sad feeling when we have to dock you checkpoints. So always be really conservative with, I'm always the guy who's like, let's push it to the end. And Kate's always the smart one who's like, it's going to take us longer than we think to get to the finish line. She's always right. So listen to Kate and not to me and your mental angel devil balance on your shoulders in hour 6 of the race. Get to the finish on time.
What we mean by that too is like if you're in the 3-hour race, you have 3 hours to do the whole course, or as much of the course as you can. And for the 8-hour race, that's the time limit. So you have to make sure you get back before you run out.
So I do see one question, and this one's near and dear to my heart. Will there be any much out of boat travel getting to the CPs? If you want, maybe. There was a lot for me last year. I can tell you that. It depends on the route that you choose and the points that you want to go after. Sometimes it can be more like, I think if you watched Eco, I think there was maybe Expedition Alaska I was watching, you know, sometimes if you have a boat, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be boating. And if you have a bike, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be riding a bike. That's just kind of how it goes. Like, so if you want to get the point that looks like it's maybe there's not enough water to send a boat up there, then yeah, go for it. But you know, you're going to make that decision based on where the points are and which ones. That's one of those. Like, am I going to spend the time when you get there? You say, am I going to spend the time, you know, wading through this and trying to find through, or am I going to just, you know, cut and run and, you know, maybe go to something a little bit more easier to retrieve? So, what else is there? Oh, there's more here.
I see questions about packs, and that leads me to something. Someone had asked a question beforehand that I wanted to bring up. They asked a question like, what is the, like in your first race, what is the one thing that you wish you had in your pack that you didn't have?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have a strange answer to this, because what I wished is that I had taken all the stupid stuff out of my pack. My first race, I carried an extra shirt. I carried an extra pair of socks. I carried like a first aid kit the size of a briefcase. And I never even opened the pack. A racing teammate of mine said a few years ago to me, if you pack like the worst case scenario is going to happen, then it might actually happen. Meaning that if you pack with all this extra stuff, like I've got 2 jackets in here in case it gets cold, I've got an extra pair of shoes in my pack, then, well, that's a lot of extra weight, and the worst case scenario might happen. but I wouldn't pack tons of extra stuff. The only thing I ever wished I had in my pack that I don't is a different kind of food, something that would taste better than what I'm eating. I eat actual sandwiches when I'm racing, like an Italian hoagie. Goes down really great for me after about 2 or 3 hours of racing. Cliff Bars to me will taste really gross after about 1 hour of racing. I carry little like goos and gels for little shots of energy throughout a race. Whatever works for you as far as food, but make sure you have a variety. And I would say if you're gonna put anything extra in your pack, just make it food. Don't pack anything crazy. Also, like about packs, I don't think you need if you're doing, let's say, the 3-hour race, you would not need a very big pack. A small pack would do the trick. Honestly, if everyone on your team had one of those like hip packs, that's probably enough if it'll hold a bottle of water. In an 8-hour race, you probably want some kind of pack. You do not need like a backpacking pack. You need something smaller. You can take a bigger pack, but the more room you have, the more extra stuff you're going to throw in there. Any other thoughts on packs that experienced people have? I think it's really up to you and what fits and what you train with. I'm sure that everyone on the strong machine team probably wears different packs. Just whatever works for us, whatever we like. Chris, you had something?
I was just going to say, for your first race, wear whatever pack you already have. Don't go out and get a different piece of gear. Don't go into something new that you just got, you've only wore once. Like the pack you've been wearing or the pack you own is the best pack. One big piece of advice I always give new folks is like, don't bring anything new to the race. Don't wear that pair of underwear for the first time. Don't try that new pair of socks. Don't put on that new pack, because only bad things can happen.
That's a great tip, Kate. I saw about like a 15, 16 liter pack. That's probably what you want. Is that, just for those who know, is that how big the Out There MS line of packs are? I think they're like 15 liters. It's a very common pack you'll see with like hip pockets.
I think that one might be 20.
Is that 20? Okay.
I think it might be yeah.
That brings me to a nice segue, which is Out There is a sponsor of the Wildlands Adventure Challenge and is giving 20% off to any racer with the Strong Machine AR 2020 code. So Kate's going to type the code in. If you're looking for a new pack, that's a really good deal on a really good pack. So the MS3, sorry, I'm eating a little sushi dinner here. Excuse my eating while we're talking. It's very rude. But the MS3, I believe, is a really good like sprint race pack, which that's the pejorative term that adventure racers use for 8-hour races. It's a sprint race. But but then they make the AR. There's another one.
Yeah, the AS something is. Yeah. I brought my pack out of the gear closet only to show you the reason it's so popular is because I don't know if you can see, it has tons of pockets that are accessible without taking off the pack. It's got 2 pockets on each shoulder strap and 3 hip pockets on each side. So I will take this pack. It won't be really full, but I won't have to take the pack off for the duration of the race unless I'm accessing a bigger piece of gear from it. Everything will kind of be in hand for me.
And Kate has used trail running vests.
I like those ultimate direction packs, like the little, again, because they have a lot of
accessibility. Yeah, but honestly, Chris's advice is right on. Like, don't spend money extra. You've already paid your registration fee. Ostensibly, you're paying for somewhere to stay. There's no need, if this is your first race, to buy a completely new pack. I mean, I used like my high school backpack for my first 3 adventure races, and it was fine. Yeah, like one of those Jan Sport bags.
The pack won't help you stay down.
It's the brain that you're gonna, be relying on, not the pack.
That's funny. Yeah, like anything is fine. Those Jan Sports will work great. Like even like I've seen people with like drawstring backpacks, like those cheap little things. I wouldn't recommend one of those, but if that's what if that's all you have and it's your first race, why not? You'll still have fun. Best map holder. for your first adventure race, a 1-gallon Ziploc bag. If you're looking to get into map holders, I have literally 100 bags for maps in that stupid closet behind me. I also have like an expensive map holder for my bike. You can go from like 0 to 1,000 really quickly in terms of map holders. One thing I would recommend is bring it, if you're like even going like in the gallon Ziploc bag area, bring a lot of them. Let's in a typical race of this length, you might get what, five pieces of paper, like 2 maps, 3 maps, a set of instructions, a set of clues. And I like to keep everything in its own bag, so I'm not digging in my map bag throughout the race. It's a great way to get things wet, to drop something, to lose something. Yeah, plastic bags, that's what I use. I have like a pack of 8.5 by 11 sized bags that are just the size of 1 piece of paper. So when I get like my rules of travel at the start of a race, I'll just put them in there, seal it, and then I'll never open that again. Same with like a race map, I'll put it in a bigger bag. Maybe something more durable, but yeah. Suck it up. The question is, carry rain gear if the forecast is bad. If it's really bad, you might put on rain gear, or if it's really cold. But if it starts raining in the race, you will see me running around in 50-degree weather in a t-shirt and shorts, just asking my teammates to go faster so I can warm up. But if you're on the paddle, it's going to be miserable if it rains, if you're not dressed properly.
I mean, I wear a rain jacket all the time when I paddle because I get cold. And the water is October in northern Maine, so it is going to be cold, especially on the water. So you might bring a rain. I mean, I think that's a mandatory gear item. Anyways, rain jacket. Yeah. So use your rain jacket for the paddle. Really, your rain jacket is a nice just extra layer if you're ever cold. So you probably don't have to bring a lot of other extra layers.
That's a great point. Yeah, I would. I actually don't know what's on the mandatory gear list, but I would try as much as you can to stick to that list with what you pack. For example, if there's a raincoat on the mandatory gear list, and it sounds like there is, use that as your warming layer for your upper body. If it's going to be really cold, like if the temps are down in the 30s, maybe you want an additional long sleeve shirt, but don't pack a raincoat and then pack a long sleeve and then pack a windbreaker and then pack, a shell and then pack a splash jacket for the paddle. Just use one piece of gear to try to cover everything. There's a question about water. Is there water available on the course? Does it have to be purified? Are we carrying enough water?
You will be able to leave water at the transition areas, at the ones you can access.
Yeah.
We will have water at the ones you can't access. But in an 8-hour race, you'll maybe need 1 fill up. So yes, you'll be able to leave water at the bikes is the short answer to that question.
We'll have some more information about that probably.
Yeah. Yeah, in the racer update number 2, you'll have much more detailed information about water. Yes, the requirement to bring purification is really like an emergency only, like, if you're stuck in the wilderness for 2 days, it's really just like a safety measure that we know you have a way to purify water. But for an 8-hour race, the chances that you'll need to purify water in the wilderness are like nil. So
there's plenty of water on the course. So if you did need to purify, there's a lot of water sources.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
When I hear a lot of water sources, what that tells me is that my feet are going to get wet. Just so you all know where I'm thinking. A lot of water sources means wet socks. Other questions? There really isn't a stupid question at this point, or as basic a question as you have. Are there other things we missed, Jeff, that you've been looking at, or questions that we got beforehand?
I don't think so. I'm kind of going back through everything here.
So last year's race, you were way out. Actually, the main summer adventure race is where you had your cramping issue. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that was kind of a revelation for you with the salt. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Oh wait, me?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that was like hyponatremia. It was like that was for real. Yeah, so the first race I did was the main summer adventure race. First like race of any length I did was the main summer. It was granted it was a lot hotter. You know, that race is in June. It was not 85, 90 degrees that day. And the thing is, like, when if you start going, like if you haven't, I don't know how much training everyone's done, but if you haven't been training regularly and you consider yourself kind of an outdoorsy kind of person, and which I did, you know, I wasn't in terrible shape, but I wasn't in like great race shape. Um, you're gonna drink you're gonna want a lot of water. And one of the things that I missed out on with that is including the salts. So there's a lot of different ways to get, you know, salts into your water. The easiest way is just like Gatorade. You know, but there are other things you can get, like Noon tablets, other salt tablets you can like either take separately or add to your water to make a flavor. Essentially, if you don't add enough electrolytes to your water, there's it's very easy to get like overhydrated. And for me, that manifested itself in like some like really serious cramps. And I was just like dry heaving for hours. It wasn't good. I had that happen to me while I was on a paddle, and you know, it had to be towed in. It was a whole thing. But the moral of the story is, you know, don't just slam regular water, especially when you're doing more activity than you may normally do in the course of your normal training or, you know, something. You're going to want more water, but if you forget the salt, it's kind of not helpful, if that makes sense.
And really, that's for people who are really going to be pushing it. I think for the average team who's just walking around, you'll be fine. But I just wanted to get that story out there for people who are planning on really trying to go hard and push themselves, to think about it. If you've done longer distance bike or running races of like a Tailwind or a Noon or a Heed, Succeed. These are all companies that make electrolyte replacements that will help you avoid cramping. So basically, you know, it's stuff for like the people who are really pushing it and going to be sweating a lot and losing a lot of salts without knowing it. That's just good. But don't stress too much about it if you're doing the 3-hour race, or if you're just planning on walking and taking it easy. You really don't have to worry about it too much. So I didn't want to freak anyone out.
I was planning on covering 100 miles that day. So
that was a 24-hour race.
Yeah, that was a bit more than Wildlands. So.
And we do have a 24-hour race next summer, hopefully, assuming the health situation gets better. But that's the main summer adventure race, and we would love you guys all to hopefully sign up for that. We'll also have an 8-hour along with it.
I saw there's a question about the difference between the 3 and the 8-hour race. There is an obvious 5-hour difference. You are correct. But it, just the difficulty of checkpoints, the quantity of checkpoints, there's probably more strategy involved. A 3-hour race usually like a 3-hour race in this setup is usually lower on the strategy than an 8-hour race. What I mean by that is you'll have to make more decisions about what you can get and what you can't get and your time cutoffs in the 8-hour race. Certainly I expect the navigation to be more challenging in an 8 as opposed to a 3. Other differences between those, I think that's probably the biggest thing. And length, you know, you're going to be biking for a longer distance, paddling for a longer distance, on foot for a longer distance. Rick brings up a really good point. Don't try something new on the day of the race, especially if it's your first race. Like we've dropped some noon, and I put a different link in there for what I use. Do not try that on the day of the race if you've never raced before. That could end really poorly for you. Just as far as your stomach rejecting it, your body rejecting it. I would strongly recommend that whatever you use, try beforehand. Which is part of the reason why when I mentioned real food, that's a really good tip, because you know that your body can handle a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So if you pack those, you know that you're not going to get sick because your body can't handle that. You know that you can eat that kind of thing. I saw a question a while back. Someone said, tips for people who signed up because they're bored but have never seen an adventure race. It's a great question. I would say to go into this and try to have as much fun as you can. Try to just get an adventure out of it, get an experience out of it. Like we talk a lot about adventure racing, but I'm sure all of the experienced racers will nod. There is no experience like doing an adventure race. You will learn more about racing once than you would ever through 100 different talks like this. I see no biking in the 3-hour race. That's good to know. I'll stop pretending there's biking in that race.
So we were going to plan on wrapping this up in the next 5 minutes. If anyone has any last questions, get them in. And be happy to stay a little longer if there's a rush of last minute questions. Let's see. Yes, so sometimes in other events there's like a lock off on the area before the race. We're not doing that with Wildlands. You can go and enjoy it. The whole point of, one of the several points of having this race is having you all experience the Wildlands. It's a beautiful, really unique area of mountains by the ocean. So you can see the ocean, and there's great mountains. It's gonna be fall foliage. Get in there as many times as you can. Donate to the Wildlands Conservation Trust. They keep expanding their area, and it's a really unique piece of property that's a really important corridor for wildlife as well. And it's, I think, 10,000 acres plus now. So it's really unique, and they're super stoked to have everyone explore it, and we're excited that they're willing to partner with us. Post-race adult beverage, you don't have to worry about that because we're sponsored by Fogtown Brewing, which is a local brewery that makes amazing beer.
Yeah, everyone will get one of those glasses too.
So for adult beverages, if you're beer drinkers, we're gonna have some great beer for you.
We'll also have root beers and sodas and things too.
And you're welcome to BYO within moderation, and as long as you don't flout it too much, if you're not a beer drinker. But yeah, there's a bunch of great places to go in Ellsworth if you're sticking around town. And we're gonna have a socially distanced bonfire Saturday night at the Twin Hills Cottages. That if you're interested in learning more, you can email us at strongmachinear@gmail.com. We're gonna see how socially distanced or how a socially distanced bonfire will turn out. It'll be awkward to roast marshmallows 6 feet away from each other, but we're gonna do it. Yeah, the biggest thing is this is gonna be a really unique race experience. It's not gonna be your typical adventure race with all the different protocols we have for COVID. So the biggest thing is keeping everyone healthy. Make sure you guys, now that we're
in the 2-week window here. Yeah.
Just keep yourselves healthy. Don't get exposed to COVID. And if you were, you are, we will be happy to give you a credit for a future race. The biggest thing is keeping everyone safe so that we can race again in the future. So this is we're doing our best here to make this event possible, but we need all your help to make it happen. So we're excited to see you guys all up in Maine next month. And yeah, last few questions.
So all of the race materials that we're going to be giving you are on waterproof paper, but the ink is not waterproof. So, you can have a nice piece of paper that the ink just slides right off of. So be sure to waterproof all your things. And you can use waterproof pen if you are really wanting to write down your codes, but a Sharpie usually works pretty well too. Again, just throw things in dry bags. I also saw how much food should I bring for a race like this. So if you're doing the 3-hour race, you probably need like a couple granola bars maybe. Probably not a whole lot. For the 8-hour race, again, I'd probably bring like 5 snacks for the 8-hour race. Like, I'd probably, eat myself a pretty good breakfast and then maybe bring like 5 snacks that are around the like 150 to 200 calorie range. That usually is about what I need for an 8-hour event. But yeah, in the end, as people have mentioned, you usually end up wanting your teammates' snacks because you get kind of sick of your own. So definitely bring a variety.
Salty snacks are good. If you're scared about the salts, I probably should have brought that up. If the salty electrolyte stuff all scared you, you can go with the old school electrolytes of Doritos, Fritos, and Cheetos, the 3 food groups. Those will all help you out on the salt.
I always have Fritos in my pack. That's my go-to salt. They're great.
Us too. Fritos and salty peanuts. Those are mine too.
You guys, like, to recover after that, you know how much pepperoni pizza I ate? Like, it was it works just as well.
Well, I think I think we've addressed all the questions that I caught here. So why don't we wind it down for this evening? Thank you to Jeff, Glenn, Rick, anybody else we kind of crowdsourced some answers from. Thank you for giving some time tonight. And yeah, we cannot wait to see everybody in a couple of weeks on that Saturday or Sunday. The Google Doc on our website of registered teams, we've been keeping up to date. So if you have any question about which day you're racing or which race you're in, then make sure to check it out there. And yeah, we'll see you guys all really soon.
If you have any other questions, email us, strongmachinear@gmail.com. We will put it out to our panel of experts if we can't answer it ourselves. But we'll get you an answer as much as we can. And sorry for not being able to answer some of those race-specific questions, but that's part of the fun of adventure racing. Surprise. Yes, this was fantastic. Thank you guys all for participating, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.